And hello, this is Ray Salsa with the lovely and the beautiful Annabel Valencia.
Hello, everybody.
And today we have a special guest that we think is going to kind of a unique perspective. He's going to come and talk to us about the dance community and healthy dance communities versus unhealthy dance communities, toxic dance communities. I'm going to let Annabelle explain why he's so good at this and give some of his credentials.
All right. So, our guest today is named Salsa Moshe, and you can find him on Facebook. He's a PhD clinical neuropsychologist. He specializes in brain injuries, strokes, pain management, and post traumatic stress disorder. And he's currently in his 30th year of clinical practice. His wife, Dory, and he started Springs Salsa and Dance Fitness Studios in Colorado Springs in 2005, and they began specializing in New York style salsa on two in early 2006 and continued with that studio until 2016. Then they pioneered dance fitness in Colorado Springs and were the first two Zumba instructors in the state of Colorado. They moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2018, where they taught salsa New York style until COVID in 2020. And since then, they are now specialized in wedding choreography. So let's bring in our guest, Salsa Moshe.
An honor that you've asked me to participate today. So I am ready and willing. You throw questions, and I'll do my best to give some clear and concise answers to you.
Awesome. We talked about in our introduction to you how you wear two hats. You have the salsa hat, instructor hat, and then you have the neuroscience hat. And we're probably going to tap into both of those two people, both Doctor and Salsa Moshe. But I want to tell everybody how I kind of came to know about you and learn about you. We both are black belt dance instructors. You've trained in the black belt dance system, and I met you, I think, via Facebook. We really haven't met in person, but we started following each other on Facebook because of mutual friends of Sensei Edie Williams. And just it's been years now since I think 2017. I've been watching your content, watching you. I'm like, this guy. And that's before I knew you were a neuropsychologist. But like, this guy he's got it together. I like what he has to say. He keeps things clear. And I've just been watching, admiring you from a distance, admiring you from afar in that way. And then, of course, I struck up a conversation with you and invited you to join us on this. So I'm excited. You have a deep passion for dance communities.
Well, I have a passion for good health. And, dance is looked upon as one of those activities that the American Heart Association classifies as healthy activity for heart health. But if you're in a dance community that's toxic, it loses its health benefits and it actually becomes toxic to the body and the brain as well. So, I think your topic of what's a healthy community, maybe we should look at that first.
All right. Yeah. What would be, we talk about, you can have a healthy community and healthy marriage, but is there such thing as a perfect community or a perfect marriage?
Well, there is if there were no human beings in it.
Right. Yes.
So considering salsa is usually a human activity, we're certainly going to say there's no perfect, but there are some good healthy dance communities, and we're going to stick to the salsa world. So first, you don't know something is impaired or toxic unless you know what it's supposed to look like. You know what I mean? You have to compare healthy to non-healthy. So let's, put our heads together and, jointly, let's look at what we would consider a healthy community. First of all, I would say a healthy community is a growing community. It is open to new people coming in, and not just open, but welcoming.
Right.
Some moves in from out of town, or somebody's just learning to dance, and they're a little awkward or shy, and they come in and they feel like they're within a couple entrances into the community. They feel like they're welcome. They feel like they belong. So I would say that's probably near the top of the list for me. What about you?
Well, I think you're right on it. I learned, I used to train for the ministry years ago, and they said that a growing church is a healthy church, but a church that doesn't, if you're not growing, you're dead.
Yes,
If you're not
yes,
changing, you're dying.
yeah. So I think that's a big part of it. It's growing, it's welcoming, and it's challenging. It challenges the dancers to be better. It challenges the dancers to grow. Um, as we know, we get into habits as dancers. We have the same kind of patterns that we're comfortable with. And, once you learn basic beginner dance techniques, and maybe even up to um, beginner intermediate, we're growing and stuff. And then a lot of people drop out after that. They stop taking lessons. They're good enough.
They're satisfied.
Yeah, satisfied with what they do, and so they're not growing. And so I'd say another sign of a healthy community is encouraging growth and encouraging lessons. And lessons have to be at a reasonable price so people can engage in them.
And I would say those price depends on a local community also.
Yeah, it depends on the going rate, but in my opinion, there also should be some sliding scale for people who want to learn how to dance, but maybe financially, it's a struggle to meet the going rate. So just like in my field as a clinical neuropsychologist, there's times when I do pro bono work, not charging um, my normal fees uh, in order to accommodate people who can't afford it.
Okay, so you're saying that the first sign of a healthy community is that it's growing, and then are you saying that the second sign is growth promoted through affordable pricing or making it affordable for most people to be able to join the community?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. It has to be a growing community that is, and don't forget the word welcoming,
Yes.
accepting.
Yes,
And
welcoming.
so, and then, the community needs to be able to encourage each other to grow. And to do that, you have to be positive. Um, So a positive community is one that says, wow, you've really got some good basic moves. And I can see that you're beginning to hear the music. Have you considered going on in your training? And then you kind of take it from there. So a growing community will have several instructors and several dance schools that people can choose from.
Yeah, Ray always says that I think his theory is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a good community will have a minimum of 5 dance studios,
Yeah.
to have a good, healthy um, variety. And then what's your take on that?
Well, I know when I've tried to do dance events and dance classes in 2 small communities where I was the only one in the community teaching salsa, and it couldn't grow. It didn't have enough different DNA, so to speak, involved. Not enough different personalities, not enough different opportunities for
Mhm.
people to take a class maybe on a Thursday instead of the days I had class. And some people don't learn from me. They don't like the system. That's okay. There's other instructors they probably learn from.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So uh, I don't know if there's a magic number, but if it's a large community, there should be a variety of salsa schools and availability for lessons. And because I was trained in New York, and my wife is from New York, we were the first on-to dance studio in the black belt system. And at the time we had people saying, well, why would you want to do on-to? Nobody dances on-to. And then what happened was a lot of the salsa congresses then held workshops on-to. And guess what happened after that? Edie got a hold of that and said, we're switching overnight.
And Edie
So
told us a story in our last interview of that. And she didn't mention your name, but she did verify last time that you were a big influence in her adjusting from on one to on two and going through that big. That's a different discussion altogether. But how you definitely was the influence in that.
Yeah, I was the only one of her black belt schools that was teaching on-to, and so that's part of a growing community is, does it have more than one style that you can choose from? Can you learn both one and two, which is, the two major ones.
Right.
You've got Cuban style and you've got Dominican style. I mean, there's so many styles, but the on one and two are your major ones. And does the community offer different styles, and do they encourage different styles? So I think that's pretty much sums up a good growing community, healthy community, where there's people encouraging each other, there's opportunities for growth, there's cooperation among the studios where each has their niche. Now, what happens as a former studio owner is there's an attitude of fear and scarcity that can take over the minds of studio owners, where they feel there's a limited number of students, and they have to put a corral around their own students. It's a fight, it's a struggle. We got to get people in to, help us pay our bills and keep the doors open and pay the rent. And that attitude of scarcity and fear then starts the decline into toxic communities.
Definitely. I've heard a lot about that. And that's, it's like when you start, and that you said it, Edie says it, operating out of fear. When you operate out of no fear, you're speaking positive about somebody. Like, okay, their focus, and you mentioned niches earlier, that if you want to learn to perform, this school's focused on performance teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you want to go. They are going to just do great for you if you want having niches. But talking about your other studios, hence your competitors, I would say that if your competitors, not really. You're growing a community together.
Yeah. So think about other industries beside the dance industry. Our free market system tells us that if you put a good product out there, people will go toward the good product. And so you put a good dance school together, a good salsa school together, and it should produce from your own students others who want to go on and start their own studios. Okay. Now, a healthy way to do that is to respect your instructor and instructors as you move on to open your own. The unhealthy way, which we see so often, is students getting to the level where they can then begin teaching themselves, teaching and having their own studio. And then with a little subtle backbiting, undermining the instructor that they grew up under. And then those things start to create friction, because
Right.
no matter what is said in the darkness, it'll eventually come out in the light. Now you've got he said, she said, and now you've got conflict. And, that's what starts the disintegration.
No, I definitely, there's no doubt about that. That happens in any community when you start getting to that way. And I think one thing as instructors, to raise people with the intent that if they choose to do that, instead of worrying about them learning to teach, encourage them to become teachers, encourage them to grow, encourage them to go out and seek, teach people and to start their own studios.
Yeah, yes. And to do that, there needs to be a type of formal agreement as to territory. That's
Right.
that's one thing I learned in New York, is that there was so much respect among the salsa schools. They each had their own territory, see, and so someone would come to a school and they'd give their address and they'd say, oh, you're in so and so's territory, you can take lessons here, but this one's going to be a lot closer to you. And give them a choice. And there's a respect factor that I found in New York City that I did not see in Colorado Springs, and I don't see the same type of thing here in Charleston. But remember, the New York dance scene, has been going on since the 60s.
Right.
So it has a long history of respect and growth and challenging. You know, when people in Colorado Springs would consider themselves to be advanced dancers, and also here in Charleston, I kind of chuckle inside, because in New York, these advanced dancers might be almost intermediate level.
I've mentioned that too. It's like, just to be honest about myself. Here, of course, I'm a good dancer. I'm respected, and I have respect for other people.
Yes.
But I know if I went to New York or LA, they say, yeah, let's bring you back over down here. And
Yeah.
because again, it's where you are.
Yeah, exactly. When I go back to New York now, see, I've been teaching salsa since 2016. That's a long 2006. 2006.
Okay.
So we're going on 17 years of dancing and being an instructor. When I go back to New York, I take intermediate level classes. Okay, I take intermediate level classes because I want to tune and hone my skills I have, and then move up the next step. I'm not trying to jump up 20 steps. I can't do that. So,
Right.
you have to have a sense of humility to be a good dancer.
No, I agree. I know that's a bit of on a rabbit trail there, but I think it's a great point. Too often we are not as good as we think we are.
Yeah.
Or I remember when I was an advanced dancer, I went from the beginner to the advanced course in Belgium where I first started dancing. And that's in 1 year.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I come back here, I started taking classes with Tony Medina, the black belt program. And he's like, yeah, let's bring you back. Let's work on the basic again. I'll talk about a crush to the ego.
That's good for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, he has a lot of patience, because I wasn't very patient with myself, but he has a lot of patience. He's seen me in my worst.
So to transition, it really isn't much of a rabbit hole we went down, because the transition is from going from competitive backbiting studios into, now you're a dancer in a salsa scene, and
Right. Okay.
you go into salsa socials, and you go in as a learner, and you go in as wanting to have fun and meet new people and so forth, then you're fine. Okay, but we know that there's a couple rotten apples spoils the whole barrel of apples, right? So then
Right.
you get people whose motives are different. So we can't do anything about people's motives. They have their own motives for being in a social. Is it some guys come in to see if they can pick up women, others would come in order to have a spotlight on them, to kind of show off. And one thing I do like about our black belt salsa system is it teaches making your partner look good. That
Yes.
the spotlight isn't on you as a lead or you as a follower, but I was trained in New York to make my partner look spectacular. And, Edie had the other view of the follower, since she's a woman, the follower making the lead look amazing. So when Edie and I got together, at first it was like I said, yeah. And so my job as a leader is to make the follower look spectacular. And she goes, oh, no, it's the follower's job to make the leader look great. And then we looked at each other and said, well, it's actually both, isn't it?
It is both.
It's both, isn't it? So when we get into toxic people in a dance community, these are the ones that say things like, he's a pretty good dancer, but
Exactly.
however, now see, it's kind of like if you and Annabel got into an argument, and you tell her, yeah, I was wrong saying that, but
I just totally invalidate everything I said before that.
right, what you started out as an apology now turns into a defense and puts her on the defensive, right? So you can hear this type of dialogue going on of he's a good dancer, she's a good dancer, however, but. And so in a good community, you just say, she got some moves. Wow, he's a real good lead. And you leave it. You leave
Right.
it. It's understood that everyone can improve. Okay. So you want to remove the judgment from it.
Yeah, I actually was in Dallas some years back, and I was doing exactly what you said not to do.
Yes.
I was looking at other leads, and one of the people I was with said, all the best dancers I know, they don't judge like that. And I knew that lesson. I just had to I had to relearn that lesson. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. I shouldn't be saying, I shouldn't come into that mentality. And that's where everybody kind of, I think anybody can be toxic. And find themselves in that place like, oh, I was a bad guy in that one.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. A lot of it depends on what's the attitude you come into the social with. What did you have a hard day? Are you in a critical frame of mind? A negative frame of mind, and all that. You have to take assessment of yourself, because what we find is that people go to these salsa socials to unwind, to have fun, to forget about daily life for a couple hours, to be transported into a place where they can just enjoy themselves and connect with other people. And so we have to be able to come in with a bright, welcoming spirit, and having that respect for other dancers. Think about it. It takes courage for a beginner to come into a salsa social, knowing there's going to be so many better dancers than themselves. It takes courage to do that. See, because we have a tendency to judge ourselves pretty negatively and compare ourselves. Don't we compare ourselves? It's just instantaneous comparison. Say, one thing that helps me stay humble is I will record myself from time to time. And I'm telling you, if I was looking at me as a third party and not me, I'd have a lot of critical things to say. Well, I could touch that up. Look at his body posture was off at that point. That's me. So if I want to be humble, and I do, I record myself, and there's so much I can refine. So who am I, knowing that after 17 years of dancing, I still have so much to do to refine my own skills.
No, yeah, we definitely felt that because I was looking at, we actually got engaged at the studio during this dance social, and we did a bachata, and it wasn't choreographed. It was a surprise to her. But I'm looking at that thinking, why am I bent? Why is my shoulders not stand? I'm not standing straight. I'm that man. I would have looked so much better if I just stood straight. I'm not
Yeah,
very tall anyway. Why am I slouching?
that's right. That's right.
And
That's
I still show it off to people. But what I also do is every now and again I'll show off earlier videos of
yes.
when I just began dancing. And I
Uh-huh.
share them with just as much pride.
Hmm.
Because, like, look at this knucklehead out here trying to dance with this professional. Like, she's making me look good. I have a specific video in Belgium when I was dancing with another instructor. I didn't know she was an instructor. And it's like, I am all over the place.
But see, you're not a knucklehead. You were a beginner dancer.
Exactly. I was the beginner dancer. And I was
Yes.
right where I tell people, you're right where you're supposed to be
Yes. Yes. You
for
were a
as much work as you put into it, as much effort. You're where you're supposed to be.
you were a beginner dancer, and by criticizing yourself, thinking you should be better than you actually are, now you're setting the stage where you have internal conflict and negative views of yourself. So, if we tell kids in school, we give them a slap, why did you miss that math problem? It's pretty simple. Well, what message are we given? See, you don't want to give that to yourself or anybody else.
You see,
People
I'm getting schooled here on on the program. That's good to hear.
people struggle with self-esteem. Everybody does. Everybody does. You know, think about women when they go to a salsa social. They spend a great amount of time with their makeup and their hair and finding the right outfit, and they get there. Now, they're going to compare themselves to other women right away. And oh, this one, oh, I wish I had her body. Oh, look at her moves. Wow, her hair looks so good. I could never wear that dress. See, so there's already this negativity of comparison. It's pretty much automatic. See, and so uh, we don't want to feed into that. We want to help them get out of their self-centered uh, focus into other-centered. See, that's one of these neural principles in dance, that if you can take the focus off of you and put it outward, then you can actually relax and dance at a higher level.
And also, I think that has a lot to do with charisma, where charisma comes from.
Don't even have to be charismatic at all. It's a matter of where your focus is. Where your focus is. Say, we all have a tendency to fall into this kind of really inward self-focus versus letting go and enjoying the moment. We call it in the psych field, we call it mindfulness.
Right.
When you're eating, you're focused on the chewing and the taste and the smell and feeling as you swallow it. It's just very focused, not on you as a person, but on the sensations. So if you focus on what's the music, this music, what's it telling me? What's the story of this music? Um, I'm watching other people. Wow, look at them interpret this song. That is beautiful. And I look at other beginners. Well, I can see that person has learned a couple patterns and is really focused on getting the footwork right. See, uh, and so you're looking outward without judgment. Mindfulness is no judging; is just observing. So get to that point in your dance community where you're observing without judging.
I think is that you can also be inspired that
Yes.
way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I see some leads that, grew up with salsa, I'm not Hispanic. And so I learned at a later age and I fell in love with the music. And my wife, who's Puerto Rican, she helped me just really hear the music and all the layers of complexity. And so when I hear a salsa song, I let go. I just feel, you have listen to the cowbell, the clave, the bass, the horns, all the complexity that's involved with salsa music. And now it takes you out of yourself. When you're out of yourself, you're less likely to be critical. Am I right?
I agree. I agree. So when we have the community, of course, everything starts with the individual, but be less critical of ourselves and those around us,
Yes.
and be more focused on sharing the love or passion you have. Is that basically what you're saying there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, being able to take, say, as a lead, what I train my students to do, my leads to do, and I've taught over so many years, I tell them, don't just go to a social and start dancing right away. I want you to look to see which women are not being asked to dance. Okay. Because men tend to go toward the more attractive women to ask them to dance. And I tell them, women who are not as attractive spend just same amount of time or more to get ready to prepare, and they're there to have a good time, and they're already feeling a little less because they're comparing themselves to others. So I teach my leads, find the women that aren't being asked to dance and go to them and ask them to dance, bring them right on the dance floor. And I'll tell you a good example. This was in the big dance nightclub in Denver. I was, watching who wasn't being asked to dance, but I saw this one woman. She was way in the back behind a lot of people. I saw that she was kind of moving to the rhythm, and I went all the way through the crowd, got her, asked her, brought her back on the dance floor, and did basic salsa because she told me I had never had any lessons. I put her on the dance floor, just basic moves, and she relaxed and looked good. When I took her back to where she was standing, we had four men follow her to ask her to dance. And
Wow.
because why? I brought her on the floor. She became comfortable, and it looked like I was having fun dancing with her, which I was. And other men wanted now to dance with her. So little things like that can make a huge difference in the community.
Yeah, I know a lot of the instructors we have talk about, especially with like my apprentices, but there's other instructors that go ask those new people to dance. In fact, where you trained with Salsa Maritza, that's one of the things you had to go and dance with the first other students at a
Yeah.
lower level.
It's encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's definitely a way, one, get them on dance floor. Because like you said, they're nervous already.
Yes.
I remember when I first started dancing, I just knew the basic step of salsa, but I didn't know what kizomba was. So here I am trying to dance salsa step to a kizomba song because I didn't know the difference.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's right. I mean, people, hear a merengue and start to do salsa. I mean, it's, but it's okay.
What
It's
I
okay.
what I tell my beginner students when we have our free lesson before our socials is you can dance merengue to any music.
Yeah,
If that's all you know,
that's right.
do it. And
That's
it's
right.
not perfect, but you're going to have fun, and that's the whole goal here: is to have fun, enjoy yourself.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and think about advantages of salsa. Salsa is a partner dance, which means most of the dance you're connected with another human being. And the research in my field shows that the human body, mind, and spirit and emotions, they flourish with touch. The touch communicates so much, and it's such a healing type of activity. And so salsa is already a connected, touching, eye to eye, smile to smile, physical touch. So it has that benefit of actually improving health. Okay. And so you don't want to undermine that with some people come in. In fact, one of my I do some individual lessons, but one of my current female students, she went to a salsa social I was at, and yesterday she told me, I was so glad you were there because there was this guy who kept wanting to grab my butt, and so what that happened, instead of enjoying the sense of touch in a healthy way, it then became real negative to her. And she says, we got to work out a signal. And so I said, yeah, the signal is walk away and find me. And that's just, and I'll be glad to be there for you. And so the sense of healthy touch can be distorted. And
Right.
we have to be aware of it. If you're going to start your own studio, you're going to have guidelines in place to deal with people who come in with ulterior motives.
We were actually just discussing that because recently we had a gentleman come in, never been in the dance community, who had an unhealthy motive.
Yes.
And it was brought to our attention. He'll probably never come back. But, like connection,
Yeah.
who determines the connection? Well, ladies, you determine. If they try to force a connection that's closer than you're comfortable with, that's where you can get help. Stop the dance right there. And
Now,
I know,
the same lady, I was with her during her first social. She's only been to three socials. A couple of days ago was the last one, last Friday. But the first social, I was watching her, and she's very pretty, and of course, guys are gonna go toward the pretty. And I had to rescue her 3 times in her first social. She didn't have that energy to detach. So I watched what was happening, and then I came by and I said, "Let's dance." And I take her hand and drag her out to the dance floor, and to escape, I had to do that 3 times. This last one, she was able to detach herself. So, we can tell ladies, don't put up with it and stuff, but a lot of ladies don't know quite how to detach properly. They don't want to make a scene and everything like that. So us as instructors, we have to be a little bit protective and watch for things in the community and the dance, that's social, that could lead to people having a bad time and not coming back. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Yeah. We're responsible to make sure they know we're available
Yeah.
and that we're also observing to try
Yeah,
to interject, to prevent. I think preventative maintenance is a big part of that.
it is. Being protective.
I know one time, even I was at a place there's a club in one of the small towns here, and I did the intro class for the Latin night, but it was it was a club, a bar, and I go dance with a lady, and next thing I know, she's putting her backside right in my lap, and I'm like, whoa, because I don't want to be seen as dancing. I'm an instructor. I don't want someone to think, oh, that's all he's looking at. Like put that in a safe direction.
Well, that's the twerking in someone's crotch is acceptable dancing today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
but
not exactly what we call
it,
dancing.
it,
It
you're
happens.
You're right, and I had to be able to deal with that, and I just grabbed her by the hips, which is a safe place for dancers. I just moved her out of the way, and I got in front of her again, and like, yep.
That's why you lived in Lawton for a couple of years while I lived in Lawton. We lived there together. But that was really the main reason why I never met Ray until we met in Oklahoma City, was because I did not want to go to a club to learn to dance salsa or to dance salsa because I don't like that scene. And so I didn't want anything to do with it. So that we didn't meet while we both lived in Lawton together
No.
for that reason.
Mm.
And I prefer dance socials over clubs any day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
'Cause I want to be able to dance with anybody, and
Mm-hmm.
not feel like somebody's going to punch me in the nose for trying to dance with their partner.
Well, and because it's a different environment, there's different social etiquette expected at a social, and it's a more healthy environment, which is what we've been talking about. And I like that more healthy community feel that you get at a social versus at a club where I say it's just a meat market, and I didn't have any interest in being in that scene. So that's why we met in Oklahoma City.
Right. At
Yes.
a dance social.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. A lot of it has to do with alcohol, right? So
Yes.
in a club, people go there to drink and maybe dance. In a social, they go to there to dance and maybe have a drink. You know what I mean? It's a different attitude. So it's great that, Annabelle, you were able to set limits and boundaries right away for yourself, and it paid off. Look who you got.
Got him anyway, huh?
But no, I'm talking about alcohol and dance in the dance community. Yes, some people go, but you rarely see a drunk person at a dance social.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
That's
not
right.
saying it can't happen,
Yeah.
and we've actually had it
but
recently.
yeah, usually when it happens, it's someone who feels insecure and, using alcohol as something to help them, let go. And I've had, at socials, I've had, intoxicated women come up to me, and I will dance with them, but it's very controlled. And my job is still to make them look spectacular. So
Right.
anything that would cause their balance to be off or something, I don't. But they had liquid courage, but they still came to me. And so it's not natural courage, it's liquid courage, but I still honored that.
Right.
Because, the last thing I wanted to do is to say, oh, you smell like alcohol, I'm not going to dance with you. What's that going to accomplish with this woman?
She's not going to come back.
No.
But I tell people that dancers require, and I noticed this at the first social I went to in Bucharest, Romania. Dancers require balance, rhythm, coordination, and hydration, all of which alcohol is the opposing.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
And I noticed that in Romania, it's like, I don't see a single drunk person here. There was an open bar. I don't see a single drunk person. They're all on the floor dancing, having a great time. They come back, dude's drinking water. He just got off the dance floor. This is a great environment. I've never seen anybody try to swing at anybody at a dance studio. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't happen because, again, people are there.
Yes.
I've never seen it. I've seen people cry. I've seen people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a fight at a dance social. But go to a bar that has a Latin night, and it's free for all. I think dance should be free for all, but it shouldn't be a free for all.
That's right. That's a good point.
Today's podcast episode is sponsored by Annabel Valencia Photography. It's me, Annabel Valencia. Did you know that I am a photographer? I've been photographing for over 20 years. I've recently moved from Lawton, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City, and I have a beautiful photography studio inside of International Dance Studio. So if you are looking for photos to reconnect you with your family and show all the love you feel for each other, give me a call. Or if you're a business owner and you are looking for photos to connect you with your audience on a deeper level, give me a call at 405-985-6805. That's Annabel Valencia Photography in Oklahoma City.
That's a good point. So, going back to what makes a healthy dance community is another piece of it, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, is to have amateur performing groups. Okay. Not professional, but amateur performing groups. It allows people to learn new patterns. It allows them to overcome the fear of being in spotlight in public. It encourages others to participate because when they like a social I was at last week, they had a group of 6 women who were not professionals by any means, but they put together a nice choreography. You could see they were having fun. The audience, no matter if they made mistakes, was cheering them on, whooping and yelling. And so I think, these amateur choreography groups can add a whole lot into the community. So that's
I
another.
think, and another sign of that is if you have an amateur group for one school,
Yeah.
the other school inviting them to perform at their social.
Yes, you could do that, and then it wouldn't be long before they're going to start their own performing. Right.
No,
So
I agree. I think I don't like performing, but I do know that it's important for a community.
yes. Yes, in our dance school in Colorado Springs, we did performances, and we had auditions, because we have certain choreographies, we have certain thing in mind, other choreographies with other dance rhythms and so forth. And so we had our own little groups of performances, and they were very dedicated. They came, they practiced, they rehearsed. And what does that do? It builds community within a community. Because if I'm practicing with you guys and I got my partner, which has to be my wife, or she'll kill me, but if I have my partner, uh, and then you have your as a partner, and we're all part of a group, and we're practicing every Tuesday and Thursday evenings, right? We get to know each other. So a healthy community has communities within the community as a whole. So there's friendships being built.
Yes, agreed. I know that I tell people that you can't build a community with socials alone. You have to go and have, meals. You have to hang out, help people out doing non-dance stuff. Maybe go help change a tire or do yard work. You have to grow it outside of just the social also.
Yeah, and there's going to be people that you're going to get along with, and there's people that you just wouldn't want to be friends with, but you're still cordial. You're still friendly with.
I use the term love them from a distance.
Loving from a distance.
I
Yeah.
always compare the dance community to a family.
Yeah.
And you've got all different kinds of personalities in a family. And
Yeah.
some, you are not going to get along with as much as others. And you have good days and bad days with your family. And you have to be very forgiving with your family. There's a lot of different personality dynamics, in a family. And I love being part of this community. I feel very much like it's a family. And it's a pretty healthy community, I would say, for my limited experience, because I've only been in the dance community for just over 2 years, just barely over 2 years now. So I feel very new to the whole scene.
Well, you've had good experiences. See, so
yeah.
So you bring that with you if you go to a different community. You already know what it feels like to be in a good, close community, and so you have that experience that you can share in any community you go into.
And you're definitely the welcoming part, because some communities, like I'm just going to use bull riding, for example. That's a community. Whether you're on state level, city level, or national level, you all know each other. And if somebody goes just to pop in to a community that they're not familiar with the etiquettes, they're not familiar with the unspoken rules in it, they can be ostracized really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas dance community, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but we need to make sure we bring people in and then gradually introduce them to the norms that we have here. And you do that key as the instructors during the free lessons that they offer, and in their classes is talk about the norms throughout the community. And those norms are international largely, because I use the same norms in Belgium and in Germany and in Holland, where I danced, as I did here in San Diego and in Denver and in North Carolina and Arizona. They're
Hmm.
all they're very the norms are very standard for the
Yes.
most part. All the difference is you greet somebody in Belgium and you know them well, you kiss them on the cheek twice. You don't do that here in the States so often.
Mhm.
But so there's some norms you have to just identify. So got to learn that norm. And every community, even like the OKC community versus the Charleston community, there's norms there too that are different.
Yes, yes. And, you know, salsa at its best is inclusive. When we first started 17 years ago, we would get negative um, interactions with the Latinos in the community. My wife's Puerto Rican, I'm not. So I'd get these comments because, it was like, this is a Latino dance. And who are you? Right. You can't be in my world. Uh, but it's broadened. It's broadened. Some of the best dancers and dance choreography comes from Japan. So it's worldwide now. It's much more inclusive than it was 17, 20 years ago when we started. Um, and so that's another positive, healthy sign of a good growing community. It's inclusive of all colors, ethnicities, backgrounds. Um, if we have a lesbian couple come in and one wants to be the lead, let them be the lead. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We have to accommodate and be inclusive in our approach to have a healthy community.
Yeah. And I mean, I've even done that where I follow as well because part of our the curriculum is learn to follow. And she
Yes,
said, "What do you say I am? I'm when I follow,
He's
I'm
extra.
extra."
he's extra.
He's very extra.
Well, it's I know I'm not as good as other trained follows, and I'm not as beautiful, so I to make up with it just having fun. Uh,
Uh,
but
I,
again, not assuming anything. Some people
yeah.
think I am gay, and I just say, "Well, did I ask you?" I think to myself, "Did I ask him out?" That's probably none of their business.
When I
But
was, this is a
go ahead.
little, this is a little aside, but I used to live in San Francisco, which is, really the heart of the gay community in the United States. And I went, I was looking for a new motorcycle helmet. And so I saw an advertisement. So I went up to this guy's apartment. And the first thing he says to me, he says, "Are you gay?" And I answered, I don't know where it came from. I answered real quickly. I said, "Well, I'm happy almost all the time. Is that the same thing?" And he just laughed. It broke the ice. And, it doesn't have to be such a scary thing,
No, you're
humor.
right.
Humor is a big part of, again, having a healthy community, a sense of humor in the community as well.
No, I definitely agree with that. One thing that I'm honored to say about the community here, and maybe you've been to more communities than I have, is we have a set of monthly socials that different studios they have a weekend
Mm,
or a day and night in that weekend, and we honor that.
hmm.
So it's like if we have a special guest coming in, and it's done by another social, they try very hard to have it either on their social or they'll use space at the other studio to support their social that night.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
there's that. I'm very glad to say we have that mutual respect against, and really all this here, we're blessed because all of our studio owners and the salsa, there's a lot of dance studios, but very few actually teach salsa. We're
Hmm.
good friends.
That's very good. Yes, that's a healthy community where there's a certain amount of competitiveness that drives people to be better, to offer a better product at a better price, and that's healthy. And that's motivating. Say, um, but if you can continue to grow in that direction and not get into that these are my students. You know,
Right.
the studio does not own a student. The dance instructor does not own the student. The student is free to go to whoever and wherever he or she wants to go to improve.
No, and of course, I believe, yeah, you draw people based on your personality. You don't have to try to hook people
Yeah.
with, some gimmick. And I'm
Yeah.
just really think we're very fortunate because I inherited this community. I didn't create it. I came in here and it was already like that. And I was like, this is a place I can grow.
There you go. That's great. So you're put in a good position for yourself. So if you
And
guys open your own studio, learn from the ones that are successful. Take them to lunch and explain that you're starting, and you certainly don't want any big competitive thing. You're not there to steal students, but is it okay if I pick your brain a little bit? Well, how would you advise us to start out? That goes a long way. That's a sign of respect toward those who've come before you.
Yeah, so Salsa Moshe, if I could interject. So we were talking earlier about the mentality of, let's say, a studio owner, for example, and how we want to have that healthy mindset, not to operate out of fear. And so I was wondering, do you think that that's something that can be taught? Is that something that's you just either have it or don't have it? Or if you find yourself in that state of operating out of fear, as a studio owner, let's say, how can we unlearn that behavior, or can we learn how to think better so that we behave differently?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Here's what I would say for people who want to open a studio. You have to have a really strong foundation financially in order to pull it off without fear. If you are depending on the studio to pay your bills, you're going to fall into your mindset because you're going to be anxious. You're going to be looking at outcome, and you're going to miss the joy of being a studio owner. So you have to have a good foundation. So you have to have other alternative means of income to carry you through lean times. Think about the studios during COVID when they all had to be closed down. If the people were totally dependent on the studio for their income, then what happens? They're bankrupt. They use their savings. They go out of business. So that would be first. Got to have a good financial cushion, alternate means of income, uh, and then you have to have a big vision. What would what would you like your studio to represent in the community? What do you want you to represent? Uh, and then what are the steps to get to that big picture? If you have a plan and you start working the plan and you grow in a systematic and controlled fashion where you have control over things, you can see the progress you're making. You listen to feedback from the students. You encourage feedback from your students. They could send it anonymously online on a web page. They can put it in a little box where you have note cards. They can come to you directly. Um, so you have to get the feedback from the students. You have to have your foundation. You got to have your finances in order to avoid falling into that fear. If you're already in the fear, then it may be part of you as a person, as your personality. You may be an anxious type of individual. You may be expecting bad things, negativity to come because that's what you've experienced in life. And so, if that's the case, you're going to need individual therapy because it's not just studio, it's life. You are responsible to build a life that's um, joyful, and you're the only one that can do that. So if you need therapy because you have a tendency to get negative and to be anxious, then get yourself a good therapist and work through that. So does that help?
Yes, yes. And I always say dance is therapy, right? But it makes us confront our character flaws in
Yes.
such a manner that when we're confronted with them, then how do we deal with them? And then you're saying we might have to deal with that outside
Yes.
of the dance community in a more therapy, like in a more doctor setting.
And I was
Yeah.
thinking the same
'Cause-
thing.
Yeah.
That
If it's,
dance is therapy, but it's not a therapist.
yes,
Yeah.
right. Right. Because if that is part of who you are, your personality is fearful and anxious, well, that will choke off a lot of opportunities for you in the future, not just with dance. And so to expand and to be free of that is going to take introspection and someone who's skilled to help walk you through.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the dance is therapy, but it's not
It,
a
yeah.
therapist.
No. It does make you I say it makes you confront your character flaws. I think if you let it brings out many things that we have to work on mentally that are not dance related at all.
Yes, the question is, how do you work on it? You,
Yes.
usually, if I have a problem with my vehicle, I'm going to take it to an auto mechanic. Okay. I can recognize, I hear a clanging noise, uh, and I can, say, well, I'll deal with it. But guess what? I want to take it to an expert. So you have things coming up in you, take it to an expert. So it's efficiently dealt with. It
So
doesn't linger.
would that be your same advice for a student, not a studio owner, but I'm a student and I'm finding myself having a lots of negative emotions. I'm going to socials and I'm comparing myself to everybody and
Yeah.
I am criticizing other people. I'm very unhappy and I'm spreading negativity. I'm not positive. I'm not a healthy part of the community. Uh, and maybe I'm recognizing that. Would that be your same advice? How would I get out of that?
Yeah, exactly same advice. Exactly same advice. Because you may have had trauma in your background. You may have had rejection in your background that cut really deep. And so, let's say as a lead, I go and ask a woman to dance and she goes, no, not right now. And so my background is going to determine how I take it. If I have a background with rejection, then it's going to hit deeper. And then I'll either get angry at her or angry at myself or both, when it doesn't have to be that way. See, if you have had significant trauma in your history, there's no better time than now than to deal with it so it doesn't choke off other opportunities for you.
No, yeah, that's great. When like I said before, we have the community, but the community is made up of individuals, and if the individuals are sick,
Hmm.
they need a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about what often happens in a dance social where your partner is dancing in a sexy way with another man. So jealousy can jump up. It happens a lot. And so now your night is ruined, and you go back to her and say, you danced a lot more sexy with her than you did with me, with him than you did with me, and now her night's messed up, and she was just flowing with whatever. So jealousy is a big thing to deal with. um, Negative self critiques, rejection. The all that can be caused from trauma, and trauma can begin in early childhood. There's a lot of literature out there on being a child of an addict, a child of an alcoholic, and the lifelong symptoms it produces as an adult if you have a parent that was an alcoholic or an addict. So there's a lot of good information and a lot of good therapy out there that can free you. And that's my advice.
That's cool. I know you also mentioned uh, jealousy on a dance floor.
Yes.
Some people, I mean, I'd say that's why it was real hard for some dance instructors to find partners. Because one, they don't want to dance with students, but two, they got to find somebody who's not jealous of them having a private dance lesson
Mm-hmm.
with someone they perceive as more attractive than their partner. Their
That's
partner
right.
perceives more attractive than them.
Yeah, jealousy is a big thing with couples, and it just ruins the whole evening. So you have to work that out in relationships. So if there's one partner that's a lot more jealous than the other, that is a cause to go into couples counseling. That's not
Right.
individual counseling situation. That's a couples counseling situation. Um, and so much good in just a few sessions can be done by identifying the roots of it and how to deal with it.
Right. Well, I know I often compare it to like dance instructing to massage therapy.
Mm-hmm,
You're not going to tell a massage therapist not to do their job.
mm-hmm,
Uh, a proctologist, a
mm-hmm,
gynecologist, you can tell them, "Oh, I don't want you doing your job." You
mm-hmm,
know, they've become experts in that area.
mm-hmm.
Uh, then again, it's also the character of the individual, and again, the trauma that's in that relationship. There's already a history of infidelity in that relationship. Obviously, that wound is still there.
Or even if there's not infidelity, but somebody cheated on you in the past,
Right.
it's still alive because it hasn't been dealt with. See, you have to understand, if someone cheated on you, it's not your fault. Okay, that other person had a warpedness in them that led them to be unfaithful. It wasn't you, see, but we always internalize, and so, you know as a therapist I've done years of therapy. I'm in my 30th year of practice. uh, there's so much that can be done in a short amount of time once things are recognized. So I encourage all your listeners to take stock of themselves, be able to talk to people, uh, get a little bit of feedback, and then find a therapist that they're compatible with. You can interview your therapist to see if it's a good fit or not. You don't have to jump into the first one. So that can um, really help take out a lot of the trauma, which takes out a lot of the drama, which allows the freedom of joy in a community.
I just want to point an observation. He's operating without fear by saying, "Find one. Don't have to come to me.
Yes, right.
Find one that you're compatible with."
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
So he's practicing. You're practicing what you preach. Because some of these listeners might be in your hometown.
yes, and
You're like, you don't have to come to me.
no, you don't have. You don't have to come to me. You have to come. You have to interview. You have to feel comfortable with the therapist, and make sure that you ask about the therapist's background. Have you dealt with this problem before? How many patients or clients with this problem have you dealt with? What is your philosophy? How would you deal with this? You interview, say, and then if somebody that makes sense to you, you feel comfortable with, then you're more likely to open up and talk about the real issues.
Well, I know that one thing with dance instructors, and maybe you've seen it differently. We all have the idea that we're philosophers uh, in our own right. A lot of it, not abuse. You see a lot of them talking about political philosophy, moral philosophy.
Yeah.
I want to make a statement. Dance instructors are not necessarily therapists. You're an
Well,
exception.
very few should be therapists. Because,
And be
yeah,
sure that you're not using your dance instructor, or as a dance instructor, you're not stepping in the role of a
yeah,
therapist.
yeah. You really have to know your own boundaries, because people look up to you as a dance instructor, and they'll attribute things to you that aren't real. You know, um, so it's important that you set boundaries. Just like when I'm in a social and I'm dancing with one of my students, and they say, "Could you show me again how to do this?" And I just smile. I say, "We're having fun. This isn't a lesson."
Amen.
Yeah. So you have to set the boundaries so that they're not looking at you as this expert all the time. They can see you as a person as well, and that they can relax and just have fun and not worry about their performance because they're dancing with their instructor.
No, I've done that too. Where, like, will you teach me something? You know what? I'm here to dance and have fun. We'll just, whatever your level is, we're gonna have fun right there.
Right. Exactly.
And they
Exactly.
like that because now
Exactly.
you're not critiquing them. It's like, we're gonna have fun with wherever you are.
So that's another aspect of a healthy community. I think we're wrapping it up here.
And I think we're doing a great job wrapping it up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So another sign of a healthy community is boundaries, with people knowing their boundaries, instructors knowing their boundaries, um, men in a social knowing their boundaries, respectful of the women knowing their boundaries. So if we have boundaries that are set, and a lot of times the dance instructors in their own studios have to, like we mentioned before, they have to give what's the expectations for us in a social, what's the expectations in a class, what is the norm that we're operating under. So if we have healthy boundaries, we'll have a much more healthy community.
I think that's true. Now you missed it in your explanation, but I know you boundaries in couples as well.
Yeah.
As far as how you dance to other people.
Yes.
I have certain moves I do that are more intimate with this lady than I will with other people.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point.
But Salsa Moshe, right?
Moshe.
Moshe.
Uh-huh.
And Dr. Wexler,
Yes.
whatever hat you're wearing, thank you so much. This has been very good discussion, I think, for both the student, the instructors who are also students, right? But for the student and the studio owners as well, just to take from this. And I'm grateful that we live in a healthy environment here.
Yes.
And I hope that that health can grow from this and other podcasts like it.
Yes, exactly. I thought you guys did a great job of focusing on this topic today, and I hope I was able to provide some insight to it.
Well, one thing about these is also another topic we might have in the future with community leaders is the social norms and the boundaries that are expected in our community.
Yes.
It might be worth a discussion with other studio owners in this area.
And if people want to follow you on social media or anywhere, how can they reach out to you?
Well, on Instagram,
Counseling.
I'm me dancer 21, me dancer 21, number 21. On Facebook, Salsa Moshe. They just put that in, and I'll come up, and I'd be glad to make friends with any of those who want to follow.
Amazing.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Look forward to seeing you. Hopefully we'll see you. We'll get a chance to dance with you sometime. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
We're getting together, guys, sometime.
All righty. So hopefully our listeners had a good time listening to this. Thank you so much all for tuning in, for whether you're on Audible or on your podcast, or whether you're actually watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in this time, and hopefully we'll see you next month with a new guest and a new topic of interest.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Ray Salsa. Whatever platform you're listening to or watching us, go ahead and leave a comment. We want to know what was your biggest takeaway. And also send us your questions, suggestions. Send us a message. We want to hear from you. You can also email at rayray@raysalsa.com. Let us know what you think.